Okay, let's call the meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Madam Secretary, the roll call, please.
Okay, Stan.
Here.
Kim. Here. Mike is here. Dolores. Here. Roland. Here. Bill Thompson's here. Dan. Here. Will. So Stephanie is the one missing right now.
Yeah, I don't have anybody online.
Yes.
So not roll call.
Nah, I'm wrong.
Yes, because technically, yes.
And Kathleen is not here
Is
today.
absent,
Is
correct.
absent too.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Secretary. Before we approve the agenda, I want to read a letter that we received in the mail from Kathleen. And I'll just read it as written, and then we'll take action. It says, Dear Mike and Dolores, regretfully, I must resign from serving on the ACCOA Board of Directors effective immediately. I have taken on an additional responsibility and do not feel that I can effectively serve on this board. Sincerely, Kathleen Vishunas, and then she signed it. So I would accept a motion from the board to accept her resignation. Will? Second. Seconded by Dan. Any discussion? I'll have some comments after, but all in favor, aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries. I would like to thank both personally and on behalf of the board, Kathleen, for her service
Absolutely.
to the board and to this organization. And I wish her absolutely the best in whatever these new responsibilities are and in any future ventures that she may have. So Kathleen, if you're watching this via video or live, thank you for your service, and we appreciate all that you've done.
Kathleen has been a major contributor to the community for years.
Yes,
Yes, she is. Yeah,
yeah, she's always been involved in various community organizations. So,
she'll be missed.
yeah,
We're gonna
absolutely.
have to turn that off.
We're gonna turn the fan off so that there's less noise here. So again, Kathleen, thank you. And so we do have a voting member board opening that I would like to use my prerogative as president of the board with the authority that I have to appoint Kim Fleming from a non-voting member at large to a voting member. Kim, would you accept that?
Yes, thank
I will. Okay, so be it. Welcome to the voting world.
I have to change
Yeah.
this then.
Yes, we have
you. There you go.
we do have to have a new sign for you. Okay, so let's move on to approving the agenda. Does anyone have any additions to the agenda that we need to add? Hearing and seeing none, I would accept a motion to approve the agenda as written.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Dolores says move. Seconded by Stan. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Minutes are approved. Okay, so before we move into approving the minutes and all of that, we have time for public comment. We do have one member of the public who would like to make some comment. Karen, you're up.
I am here to represent the seniors of a euchre club. We're asking the board to let us play downstairs. You know, it's a senior center. We've been playing downstairs for years. And as we've gotten older, some of us have canes, a walker, hard to use the steps. And the board asked the euchre players asked me to come and would you let us meet downstairs? This is our only outlet for some of us to have fun playing cards. So So we're asking that it'll make it easy and more accessible, maybe have a few more players come out to go play downstairs. We've always cleaned up, set up, we've always kept the area clean and neat. So that is my request before the board today.
Thank you, Karen. We will certainly take that under advisement. We'll talk about it.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
You have my word on that.
Thank you.
Okay, any other public comments? Okay. Minutes. Everyone should have had an opportunity to read through the minutes in your board books. Are there any additions, deletions, corrections?
I noticed one mistake in here and I pointed it out to Pam. She's going to correct it.
Okay.
On the last page, it says at 12:15, Stan made the motion to adjourn until May the 25th. And then the next line says Mike adjourned the meeting until June 22nd. The first line on 12:15, that should be.
Yeah.
omitted.
That was actually the day of the current meeting.
Right.
Yeah. So you'll make that correction?
Yes. I will
Thank you,
make that
Pam.
correction.
Any other corrections, deletions, additions? Hearing and seeing none, I would accept a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
I make a motion.
Rollin, so moved,
I'll second.
seconded by Dolores. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, the minutes are aye for approval.
Aye.
It's gonna be a long day.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's carried. The minutes are approved. Thank you. This cold snap has apparently frostbitten some of
We're
my
all
brain
frozen.
cells. Okay. So the reports are in your book. We are not going to have staff members give the reports today because our meeting is focused on our upcoming projects and we have a lot of presentations to get through. So are there any questions on, you all should have had a chance to read through it. You were supposed to send me questions ahead of time if you had them. And I got none and I don't think Lenny got any. So, but I will give an opportunity. If there is a question, we can deal with it now. I see none. Okay. If any come up, certainly email Lenny or myself and we'll make sure that we get the answers for the next meeting or what have you. Okay. So let's move on to our presentations. Persons wishing to address the board.
Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna do, yeah. Vic.
Nimka has, but she's not online to skip her.
All right, we'll skip NEMSCA. Or is she here?
I don't know if this person is, but we're gonna.
That was Mary. Okay, let's go with commissioners' reports.
Well, I'll keep it sweet. The biggest issue we're having is trying to decide what we're doing in the county building. We're still battling back and forth. The court side is under much more strict requirements than the county side. County is sort of being, with COVID, slowly reducing to the point where the doors are open. But when there's a court in session, the judges have made it issue that they still want the COVID questions and the mask and the doors locked so that they know who's in the building and so forth. There's a new kiosk. It's been there for about a week or two now. That will probably be incorporated as a long-term aid. It's not a cure-all, but what you do is you come in, there'll be a screen, it's a staff or visitor, you touch screen it and ask a few questions. The questions may change as COVID changes. It does take a temperature, takes a picture, and then it sends, you pick out where you're going, what department, and it sends an email to everybody in that department that someone is coming to see that person or that department. And it has electronic lock. If the doors are locked, it will open the door. You get a badge. If by chance you can't get from the kiosk to the door in time, the badge is has a electronic badge. You can swipe it and it opens the magnet again. You can go through. If you're doing business, say register of deeds, where you're in there for a while and you need to go to your car and come back in, you don't have to go through all the process. You take that badge, you swipe the door entry, it unlocks it for 24 hours. It goes with you and you can get back in and do your business. So it's not an open door policy, it can be unlocked. People will have to learn to use the kiosk. There will be some phone numbers along this line. If you're having problems, you can call the department you're going to and have someone come meet you. But it does look like we'll have some security with that. Again, it's more not leaning towards security to the employees and so forth versus COVID, as COVID hopefully will be under control in the future. Right now, our violence and the TVs and the reports are getting worse every day. Yes, we haven't had that, but if you follow the reports from the sheriff, some of our incidents are getting a little bit more violent than they were in the past. So we're trying to be ahead of the game, and it's not going to make everybody happy, and I'm sort of sorry for that. But I think my responsibility is to my employees at the courthouse to keep them a safe workspace, and this is a small step, but they all seem to think that it'll be in the right direction. That's about where it is. So we'll be listening to a lot of complaints, and it is a public building, but all we're asking for is like a registration to get in. We're not stopping you from coming in if you follow those procedures.
And it's just unfortunately the way of the world these days. I mean, we don't want to have locked doors here either necessarily, but with all of the stuff going on, the surveillance, we really need to keep both our employees and our consumers safe while they're here. And so, I for one, am glad that, schools are the same way.
I may have missed it. Is that in place right now?
It is,
Okay.
we're still getting some of the software. As soon as everything was purchased, they would have it totally, but it is, when the court's in session, it is working all the time then. And as soon as the court's over with, then they sort of lessen the machine and you can get in and out without the machine. But it's something that you need to look forward that it's going to be more permanent the whole time. And it's just an unfortunate situation for our society. And they are looking at getting a license plate or a driver's license swipe, which would cut down the information you'd have to type in. And if you don't want that to happen, you could hit like another button and you can put your name in by yourself if you didn't want to swipe your driver's license. So those are in the works. But
Everybody's been, as an appraiser person that has to go to assessing sometimes, everybody's tried to be really helpful on the phone and because of the restrictions that the way they have been. So just so you know that, I think everybody there, from the treasurer's office, the registrar, everything has been super helpful as possible,
Right.
even though they weren't able to physically.
And for people that just don't feel like they want to come still yet to a public building, those options are going to be available all the time. Call in and get the department, talk to a person that way. It may come to where we have all of that available, just like the Zoom and everything else. It's
Right.
the direction.
Anything else?
Nope.
All right. Any questions for Bill?
How accessible is this? To handicapped people?
You can, it should be fairly, it's low enough that I think someone in a wheelchair can punch the buttons in, or they can be able to reach the call button and someone can punch the door. And there will be a new one down at the lower level for the equalization and both of the prosecutors. They'll have two kiosk machines, one for the upstairs and one for the downstairs, operating on the same information. The worst scenario that I can think of is if you're really incapable of getting yourself there, is to call ahead and have somebody meet them at the door. And particularly if you're going to see the clerk or the treasurer or something like that, call ahead and say, I'm in a wheelchair or I'm handicapped, I can't stand, whatever it might be. Could someone meet me at the door? And I'm sure that they would make arrangements for it.
Actually, that button is.
I think they have to keep it at a certain level for.
All right. Anything else? All All right, moving along. Dan, let's move to you with your superintendent's report, please.
Just a few topics. Obviously, we're moving into the summer. We had a window demo from the original windows that are going to be replaced this summer on the schools. If you drive by, you'll see sheeting up, protecting the classrooms until we're able to actually get the windows in July and then be able to begin the install process. So exciting projects kind of happening and overdue renovations for the most part. State budget right now kind of impacting a lot of our decision making because the legislature is only in session essentially 5 more days until September, and that includes today, tomorrow, and Wednesday or Thursday. And they have not issued a school budget yet. And we do not know, even though we've already had to adopt our budget for next school year. So kind of navigating in the dark right now in terms of what that might look like. And they're still sitting on 3/4 of the federal stimulus money, and they have not allocated that to schools yet either, which is allegedly for COVID related relief to help us prepare for next school year and support students. So likely we'll have to get the details of that in September is what it looks like right now, which obviously the school year will be underway, which is kind of defeating the purpose of that funding. So still some staffing challenges. I mean, I mentioned that in the last meeting. Incredible shortage of teachers right now, and especially in rural areas where, it may not be as attractive to live for a newer teacher or a newer person. So working through those challenges as well. And, obviously furiously planning to get ready for next school year as well right now, and have a lot of scheduling details and some curriculum adoption processes in place. So be a busy summer, and hopefully it'll be a more normal summer than last year, where we thought we would know more of what next year would look like, and we do, but just a lot of the details that will help make things move more swiftly would be welcome on our behalf. But all in all, good start to the summer.
Good. 2 quick questions for you. One, I heard, and I wanted to verify it, there is an opening or 2 on the school board. Is that
One vacancy. So there was 2 postings in the review, and then we threw out some postings on social media. The deadline had passed for the applicants at this point. We have 1 person who expressed interest in that position, and they'll be interviewed Monday night at the board meeting, and then determining if they'll move forward with that candidate or repost.
right? Okay. And then my second question is, some states have moved to, because of this teacher shortage, moved to licensing teachers based on life experience rather than a teaching degree. Is that something Michigan is looking at? Do you know? Or?
Michigan has 2 programs in place right now that offer alternative certification routes. One is called #Teach. I know that kind of sounds like a funny name, but it's called, one is #Teach, and the second is Teachers for Tomorrow.
Mhm.
So they allow people with bachelor's degrees to go take a state certification test, and essentially student teach for 3 to 5 years, get paid for it,
Right.
and then be taking coursework to work their way through it. Both programs are pretty similar, a couple nuances, differences between them, but that's something that's on the table and we're considering, but, have to be very careful about where we place people, in terms of their experiences in life. I mean, I don't know if a bachelor certified person teaching kindergarten could be a very challenging situation for someone that may not have the right experiences.
Right.
So we've kept that option open and are having some conversations, but it's a really delicate situation. But yes, we do have that flexibility.
Okay.
So
Perfect. Thank you. Any other questions for Dan? Righty. Is Vicky on?
yeah, Vicky just needs to unmute.
Okay, Vicky, if you would unmute from NEMSCA, we'll go to the NEMSCA report.
*6, Vicky.
Oh, there she
There
is.
she goes.
All right, Vicky, you're on. Maybe. She's unmuted. Vicky, can you hear us? I love technology.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Oh, see, I had Zoom muted, and I also had my Teams because I'm listening to you through my Microsoft Teams right now.
Well, you're
We're
on.
working on the RFP. I'm just working on the RFP process right now. which Lenny filed some requests for proposals. And that's really about it right now. I'm finishing up my assessments for the year, so I only have one more out of the 12, so.
Excellent.
And I'm, like I said, I'm new. I've only been here for 6 months, so it's all still a learning process for me.
We'll treat you with kid gloves for a while.
What's that?
We'll treat you with kid gloves for a while.
Okay, good.
Any questions for Vicki? Excellent. Thank you, Vicki.
No, I was kind of interested in the bachelor's degree thing because I have a master's degree in accounting and if there's teaching opportunities.
Yeah.
So, Vicki, I'll forward Dan O'Connor's email to you.
Okay, thanks.
Your math position.
Yeah.
Accounting
Perfect.
might.
That might work.
I have a master's. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so yeah, Lenny is actually emailing you as we speak, so you'll have that contact information.
All right,
right.
thank you.
Yep, thank you, and thanks for coming. Okay, so we have persons wishing to address the board, and that would be our presentations for today. So we're going to start out with, this is the building and design team for the project. And so are we going to go in this order, Lenny, here?
Yeah, I figured they could all introduce themselves.
Okay.
And then we can start presentations by that. So.
All right, perfect. So I'll let you guys introduce yourselves and then go ahead and make your presentations.
I'll start. My name is Joe Heapy. I'm with Ethos Development Partners. We're developers and development consultants that work primarily on affordable housing. We work throughout the state of Michigan, also in New Mexico, which is odd. But if you look at Mexico, in a rural community in New Mexico where there's need for affordable housing, we're doing some work in Wisconsin and also in Jersey. But I'll talk more once I do my presentation.
My name is Tim Miller. I'm with SIDAC Group Architects and Engineers. We're the architectural designers and engineers for this project. Personally, I've been involved with affordable housing for 10, 15 years. I've worked with Joe in a previous life. I'm pleased to be able to bring that experience and that knowledge to SIDAC Group and to ACCOA County Commission on Aging and Lenny and to the team in general. I'm very excited about the project. We as a firm have 7 offices, mostly here in Michigan, but we also have recently Pennsylvania and Florida. But we specialize both commercial and residential style work, multifamily work, senior housing, institutional care work. And specifically, I'm out of the Gaylord office. We specialize in most of our work being in northern Michigan. We've been working with Lenny now and the commission for over a year on developing this project through all its different evolutions on various different sites, assisting with due diligence, lending our expertise here and there where we can. And so, yeah, so I'll get into our project and our program a little bit more. Larry can introduce himself.
My name is Larry Molnar. I met virtually with you folks when we put together the proposal for the feasibility research study. And just to refresh your memory, many, if not most, agencies and foundations and grant funders require a feasibility study. So we're in the advanced stages of the beginning of this, and I'll get into it a little bit more. But my background is I retired 2 years ago after almost 40 years at the University of Michigan, directing the Institute for Research on Labor, Employment, and Economy, and I have a lot of experience with federal grants and foundation grants and that type of thing. So I'm hoping that we can get the funding in for the projects that you have planned and I'm going to hear about.
Excellent, thank you.
All right, guys, you guys got an hour. So who wants to bang out first? Who wants to?
Why don't I start? So, again, my name is Joe Heapy. I'm with Ethos Development Partners out of Detroit. I come out of the nonprofit sector, 25 years working on affordable housing. So my question for everybody here, it's a trick question, is what federal program creates the most affordable housing in the country.
We read the script.
You know, that's not fair. I should never have said that. So it's the IRS, believe it or not. And through a program called low-income housing tax credits, which was started under the Reagan administration as a public-private partnership to ensure that quality affordable housing is developed. Now, one of the unfortunate things is the name of the program, low-income housing tax credits. That gives people views of public housing, housing that's not well kept. That is not the case. Tim and I have worked on very nice developments where that's certainly not the case. I mean, there's certainly a need for housing for folks with very low income, but the majority of this housing is for folks who are working. People who are working in the service industries, who are getting priced out of their communities. We're doing a project in Traverse City where there's a tremendous need. People who are working in restaurants or hotels just don't have a place to live nearby. So, so as you look at low income, it's an unfortunate name for it because it's really affordable housing for people who are working. We just wrapped up a project in Oak Park in Oakland County that was affordable, oversubscribed, 64 units, 500 applicants, mostly folks who are working, right?
Yeah.
Working at Taco Bell. Mom works as an admin at a school. Dad works on the fire department. Actually, these credits are being used in very upscale communities as well because service workers cannot afford to live in those communities. So there's a huge need for this in rural areas. I'm thrilled that Tim and put me in touch with Lenny because we're doing more work. And what we do with our firm is work with nonprofits to help them figure out how do you navigate this process. It's not an easy process to navigate. You're not going to walk out of here saying, I understand this makes total sense. So don't feel that. And the way we do our work is we teach. I hope Lenny's been feeling that as we go through our meetings. We show you how it works. Everything we present to you is something that Joe Heapy and Tim and Larry can't say, this is a great deal, go for it. It's ultimately invested in by large banks. Those banks are going to underwrite the project to make sure that it works. They're going to be a partner in the project for 15 years. They do not want to see a project that is going to fail. So the project's also underwritten by the State Housing Authority. So I say this for folks who aren't familiar with this process because it is an involved process, but there's numerous safeguards. We can't push through a project that does not work. It's not going to happen. And the state will not allow it. And then if it's Chase or PNC or Fifth Third, they're not going to invest in those credits because ultimately, you'll see this in a second, they are equity partners. So for them, it's an asset for them for a minimum of 15 years. And they want to make sure that the folks who live there are safely housed and it's a decent property. So I just want to lay that out because I know in the public's image, because I've been working in affordable housing for a long time, it's like, oh my God, public housing, it's a nightmare. This is not public housing. I also say that just as an aside, not all public housing, but this is not public housing. So this is private housing, public-private partnership. So let's go to the next slide. So I'm going to give you a quick overview, give you an example, talk about some of the financing, redevelopment, and kind of what's involved as far as guarantees and risk, and then talk about the preliminary timeline. Again, I'm happy to come back or happy to participate in Zoom. We are, it's very important to us that you have an understanding overall of what the program is. Getting into the weeds, that's Lenny and our job. But at the end of the day, like I said, I just want to sound like a broken record. This will be underwritten by bankers. You're talking about millions of dollars. You're not going to do something that doesn't make sense. I talked about tax credits. Sorry, Lenny, I'm going through this kind of.
Which, you want to go this one?
Go to the next one. Next one. Yeah, there you go. So here's how a basic project works. There are two types of tax credits. Again, passed under the Reagan administration to create public-private partnerships. Been very successful since then, over 35 years. Say a project costs $10 $1.2 million. The land, in this case, the land you're purchasing, would not be eligible for the credits, but that's okay. We're gonna pay for it another way. So you get to what's called eligible basis for the tax credits. So subtract the land, $10 million. If the units are all for lower income working people, the percentage we're saying is 100%. So 100% of that $10 million is eligible for tax credits. That gets you to this, what they call qualified basis. Because it's 100%, it's $10 million. The IRS has set up a rate at 9%. It's based on bonds and things like that. I'm not going to get into all that detail, but that's why it's called a 9% tax rate. As a result, the project is eligible for an annual credit, tax credit of $900,000 a year over 10 years. So that works out to $9 million that is available in tax credits that can be sold to an investor. So you apply for the credits through MISHDA, and then you get them. And in this case, let's say we got this award of $9 million in tax credits, then you go on the market. You can see that there are syndicators, folks who take funds from many banks and put it into funds. And you say, I want to sell this to you. And they'll, in a lot of deals right now, they're running 88 cents and 91 cents. So let's just say that the investor purchases those credits for 90 cents. You get $8.1 million net. Sounds too good to be true, right? That's 80% of your cost of your project. Well, it is to some degree because it's competitive, highly competitive to get these credits. So my first statement is it is too good to be true, and it is true, but you got to compete for it. Okay, so that's what we're working on with Lenny here. Is how do we put together a development project that's going to be competitive for these credits. So does anybody have any questions on that kind of basic process for how these credits work? Then it's the next one. But yet, we still have a gap, right? Remember I said 10.2 million, get equity from the tax credit investor, 8.1 million. There's a gap of $2.1 million. So we have to fill that gap. How is that gap filled? Lenny, let's go to the next one. So typically, there are a variety of sources for that. Home funds are federal dollars that go into states and some municipalities and counties, which can be provided for affordable housing. Community development block grants can be used for this. Tim and I have done historic buildings. You can get federal historic tax credits. That would not be the case here. Federal Home Loan Bank, that's a grant. So the Federal Home Loan Bank is a coalition of banks that gives out funding for these type of projects. We talked about foundations are a potential source. A mortgage, you can take a mortgage. Now, the mortgage is I want to be very clear for the board because we do all of our work almost with nonprofits. This question comes up. That is not a mortgage with letting your agency. That is a mortgage with the project. So the agency is not paying that mortgage note. The project has to be able to support that mortgage note for the rents. So it's not you're taking on additional debt for the area agency here. Okay, it's related to it's directly to the project. And then there's something called developer fees. So for the headache and joy of going through these projects, the developers are entitled to a fee, and it's built into the project, and it can be on a 9% up to $1.5 million. That is just unrestricted. Sorry for all the hard work and how hard this is, years of work. So that comes in. You can potentially defer part of that. So if there's a gap, say we're ready to close, there's a gap of $250,000. Well, hey Lenny, can you take $250 of your $1.5 million developer fee and put it into the project? Now, the goal is not that you're giving it to the project. It's got to be structured. It's got to be paid back. It's got to be paid back over 10 years. So that's basically how these things are structured. Go ahead.
Question on your $8 million credits, when that comes open for purchase or financing, is it usually multiple banks or multiple institutions that break that apart and take some money, or would there be one organization says, I want the whole?
That's a great question. Typically, it's one. Sometimes it can be a combination. So there are banks that work with what are called syndicators. They're like brokers of these tax credits. So, they put funds from a number of banks into one fund. Right. Okay. So, and again, for belt and suspenders, everybody was underwriting this to make sure it's going to work. So that's basically, go ahead. Sean.
Our project is small enough that it's fairly likely that one bank will take it over, right?
That's correct. That's correct. And I can tell you, we'll talk about process. I had, when Tim first met me, I think my hair was more red than it is gray. So, and I was less older, looking stressed out. We did the project we did in Detroit was actually, we got an award, which we didn't want to get, for the most complicated financing in the country.
That's why I brought you.
That's right. So I went to Boston to get the award, and I said, I did not want to get this award. So, but anyway, but here's the thing too. Groups like yours do these all the time. And this is not something that's beyond the reach of smaller communities. In fact, it should be more in the reach of smaller communities because you have a tremendous need, right? And MISTA is recognizing that, right? I've been talking to folks in Sheboygan, other areas where just a tremendous need for safe, decent, affordable housing for folks who are working hard. So that's basically what we're actually shifting more. We're working to look at these type of opportunities. So let's just go, Lenny, if we could, to the next. So there's other sources of financing. So I don't want to get into kind of the craziness of these programs, but 9% tax credit brings in about 80% of your equity, highly competitive. There's also a 4% tax credit. The 4% tax credit brings in about 30% of your equity. Now, not as competitive. The reason being is that you have to find that other 70% to do the deal and not another 20%. So we will look at this project through that prism just to see if it could work. And in that case, then you would use bonds for MISTA to finance the project. And what we'll do is we're going to work through as Tim wraps up his work and we bring on a general contractor. We're going to be looking at how much does this cost. Another big caveat we've all been reading about lumber. Yes, it's coming down, but once things go up, they never quite go to where they were. Labor, massive issue. Materials in general. You hear about, I just learned this a few weeks ago, stuff in Texas from the winter with the refineries that screwed up paint and all this stuff as far as pricing. So we're in a very challenging environment with construction costs. Hopefully, once we go through the timing here, you'll see that by then maybe it'll have stabilized and come down a bit. But at the same time, we're also in an environment where there's more resources from the federal government to hopefully help offset that. Lenny, go to the next. So pre-development. We are in the full-fledged pre-development phase with Lenny and our team here. We are looking at design, cost. There's got to be some legal work to set up the structures for this. Phase 1 report. There's got to be a market study done. Again, banks are investing, so they want to know, is there a market for this house? So we have to order a market study. MISTA wants to see that. They're not going to take Lenny's word, right? They want a third-party expert to come in and say, yes, there is need for housing in this community at these rents. So we're putting that all together. Those fees typically range from $50,000 to $100,000 to submit an application. Okay, that's just the cost of doing business. Now, that's your risk, right? That's the risk of the organization. If we don't get funded, we can apply again. Many projects don't get funded the first time. We can apply again. We will also share with Lenny and the team that, hey, Lenny, don't go much further on this. It doesn't look like it's going to happen. It doesn't benefit my company to have folks say, well, Joe and Tim and everybody came in and said, we can do this, and they were full, right? This is a reputation business. So we're going to score it. We're going to say, does this make sense? And then we're going to say, Lenny, go. And we're going to process part of the final scoring is cost that we have to determine. So, but the good news, so that's your risk. The good news is if the project gets funded, 95% of that gets reimbursed from the project. So our fees, his fees, all the fees associated with getting an application in are part of the project budget. So, but I want to be very clear, real estate is risk, right? This is your risk proposition right now. So we cannot guarantee, even if with a good score, the project's going to get funded. I would be remiss professionally to say I can guarantee that I can't. But we're not going to have you submit unless we think you're competitive and letting you see, be able to say, yeah, that makes sense to me. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so you are going to need a partner in this project for two reasons. One is, one of the things that Mr. looks like to be competitive for the 9% credits is experience doing tax credit projects. My company, oddly enough, doesn't have the experience point because my former employers, NSO and Lighthouse, have my experience points and hire me to do their deals. So I'm very frustrated about it, but which is fine because I love working. But we're going to need to find a partner, and I could potentially bring a partner with us that can help make that happen, or we'll introduce Lenny to other mission-oriented nonprofits that want to do these type of projects. You need to maximize experience points. Okay? The second piece is you're probably talking a $10 to $15 million project based on the size we're talking about. The tax credit investor is going to want to know, well, who's on the hook if anything goes wrong? They're going to want to see a balance sheet of at least $1 million liquidity. I don't have that. My wife does not want me putting up my house, so I can't do that. So we're going to so bringing in the partner is going to help with that. You're a small organization, that's going to bring you some help because you're going to take that risk. The other, but here's the good thing about these risk points. Program's been around 35 years. Banks keep investing. There's a reason they keep investing, because it works. So that risk piece is relatively low. Construction is your biggest risk factor. How do you mitigate that? Well, you're going to have a construction company that knows the program and is bonded. So ultimately, if there are problems, Lenny and us are going to go, hey, Mr. Construction Company, you're bonded, you got to fix this. That's your biggest risk, and it's relatively low. And again, all the investors, initially are going to look at, you have a team. It's not the type of thing where I could say my uncle Bill has a general contractor, he does small houses, he's the guy for this project. No. It's going to be someone who's got a successful track record doing this. Your other potential risks are related to leasing up in time. So how do you address that? We're going to recommend a property management company. Lenny is not going to manage this property. Your organization is not going to manage this property. A, I don't think you have capacity. B, I don't think you have the experience. Because, let's come back to what I said earlier. This is an IRS program. The banks are depending upon qualified residents living there in order to achieve those credits over 10 years. So you have to have a property management company that knows how to manage to these IRS requirements. Again, another safeguard for the folks here. Go ahead.
Can you explain a little bit more about the point system? We talked about experience points, and so Joe can talk about that. When we present to MISTA and they score it out, they will give points based off of all the experienced people, including contractors, are part of the deal. Can you do that? And then can you also talk about how ACCOA County is in a prosperity region, so that's a little bit more points as well?
Yeah, so the point system, and I'm happy to, at some point come back and go through that or do it on a Zoom. So they're substantially changing it for this round. So what MISTA does is every 2 years they change the application process. It's interesting how they're changing it because I think it's going to make this deal more competitive, but the problem is it's going to make a lot of deals competitive. So it's going to be interesting. So we're going into, I always say to folks, put on your seatbelts, we're going into a new round with a new application process. But typically they look at location, proximity to stores, things like that within a mile, that type of stuff, healthcare, those type of things. And we'll share this once we score it, Lenny can obviously share it with everybody here. They're gonna look at design. They're gonna look at, who's living there as far as incomes, if you have a range of incomes that are gonna live there. So those are the primary ones, and then the management company is a big one. They want to see an experienced management company. They're gonna want to see how much the project costs. Are you efficiently using this scarce resource to do the project? So that's how they score you. So, and then I think they're gonna do, again, or there's also a rural set aside. I think last round they did something a little bit different. I'm not sure they're doing it this round, but they recognize that there's got to be more deals in rural areas. Again, I know this is being recorded. There is a say, he said the same thing over and over again. I can't guarantee real estate is risky, right? So, but we want you to understand what's involved. That's our business. Is that? Yeah. Okay. Let's go to the next. So we've already kind of talked about this. How do you mitigate the risk? You have development consultant, that's us, legal counsel, architect, general contractor, accounting, environmental, management company, title company. I refer to the market study. All people who've done this before and who are known. Right? I wouldn't be at this table if Lenny had not reached out to Tim, and Tim could have said, "Yeah, Joe Heapy, he's not very good." You know, so it's just how it works, right? It's a small community of folks who do this stuff. So Lenny is doing the right thing. Here's the other thing. I was Lenny 15 years ago when I did my first tax credit project in Pontiac. I assembled a team. I said to my board, "I want to do this project." Board was like, "Okay, sounds kind of crazy, sounds kind of risky. Let me surround myself with the right people to get this done." And so that's exactly what Lenny's doing right. And we always recommend to folks who've never done this before, whether it's us, there's other good people in the space. I'm not saying it's only us. But he's doing it right, right? He's surrounding, he knows what he doesn't know. The folks who think they know it are bound for disaster, right? So Lenny is really smart in knowing what he does not. So he's surrounding himself with the right people. Let's go to the next slide. So here's a sample timeline. Older version, but I'll update this again. So we're in pre-development. The next application round is October 1st. We are shooting for October 1st. Again, I can't guarantee we're going to hit October 1st because I know Lenny's working on site control. We need site plan approval. We need a pilot, which is a payment in lieu taxes to help offset the taxes. All those things have to be done in order to apply. So we're at a point where that all has to come together in like the next 30 days. Not necessarily be done, but we know it's going to be done, right? So, and we will then submit what used to be one of the few good things about COVID, there are none. Other than this, we used to submit 5-inch binders to Commissioner. Now we can submit electronic, but it's still 5 inches worth of paper that goes in. So we'll submit that on October 1st. We won't hear a word until January. They do not call and say, you know, clarify this, clarify that. January comes, they announce. Hopefully, Lenny will get a call. They typically do on a Friday, either to ruin your weekend or give you a good weekend.
Either way, you're drinking.
I've had both Good Friday calls and bad Friday calls. So Lenny gets that call, hopefully gets the award. Then we're going to be say to Tim, because we're not unleashing him right away because he's expensive. His work as an architect. But the doing full set of drawings, it makes no sense at this point because you don't know how to finance it. So we're going to say, Tim, we got the award. Get into your construction design, the development documents. He's going to say probably 6 months or so. You're going to get to do that. He's going to need about 6 months. So that puts us into June, July of next year. At the same time, we're identifying the investor. We're looking for the best deal on pricing, best deal overall. We're lining up all the financing pieces while he's doing that. He's done. Then we're going to say to general contractor, you're not signing a contract with general contractor until right before closing. So we're gonna bring on a general contractor now to help with pricing. They understand that that's what they're doing. Their hope is, because they're doing that, that they will ultimately be selected. But you're not signing a contract. There is no obligation to make at this point. So that general contractor who we believe you want to work with, it makes sense. We're gonna say, construction drawings are done, go bid it out. Give us the final numbers. They're gonna say we need 45 days to get it. They're gonna come back, and we're gonna go, oh God, it's too high. Always happens. And then we're gonna go, let's sit down as a team and figure out how do we bring this in the budget without, but still having a nice project. We had this on our big project where we had to make some serious value engineering decisions. Project still turned out beautiful. You just have to make some adjustments. So we'll do that. So ultimately, we will hopefully close in fall, late fall, early winter of 2022, if all the stars align. So you do that. We typically have it so that that'll be winter, unfortunately, so we'll have to see how that plays out. But you do that so that you have your general contractor lined up, ready to go. Once you close, there you go. The closing process, I will tell you this, I am not a lawyer. Any lawyers here? Any accountants? This is a jobs program for accountants and lawyers. So when we get into the closing on this, there's going to be weekly closing calls. There's going to be the attorney, your attorney. There's going to be the attorney for the investor. There's going to be an attorney for any lenders, because these credits, but they don't all come in at once. They come in during a project, so you have to bridge that with the construction. They're going to have their lawyer, and you're going to see change, and you're going to do this for like 3 months of intense calls with massive closing checklists to make sure that the deal is good. So you close, and then so assuming, let's not assume weather, but assume construction starts in January, figure 18 months until you're done. So that brings you into 2024. So this is how it works. I hope when this is done, you like our team, because we're going to be together for the next 3 years. So, and just so you, again, coming back to my being Lenny, my prior job with the nonprofit, I presented to the board all the time. So we were undertaking a $50 million project that small nonprofit had never done before. You're not going to do 50 million, but still. So I understand part of, I think what's unique about our business is we understand that this brings concern, nervousness, all that kind of stuff, and that you guys are going to want to know what's going on. But I will say this, again, having been Lenny, trust Lenny. Lenny's got the organization's best interest in heart. He's going to surround himself, and has been surrounding himself with the right people. So last slide that I will stop because I want to go out here. So why do this? This is in your wheelhouse. This is why nonprofits do this. There's a need for safe, decent, affordable housing. It's a tremendous need. The developers need. So up to $1.5 million. If you have a partner, they're going to take a chunk of that because they're providing risk, guarantees for risk. But still, unrestricted funding that will come into the organization. And especially again, it helps fulfill the mission of the organization. And finally, I'll come back to where I started. 35 years, public-private partnerships. Government is not in charge. Government is providing the resource, oddly through the IRS, but ultimately, your partner in this project will be a large financial institution who does not want it to fail. They can't afford for it to fail. They can't afford for the local paper to say this thing's a disaster, because then they're going to call Lenny and say, we got to fix this. So, again, I'll wrap up with saying we do these developments all over the state. We are very, very mission oriented. I personally have, my brother lives in subsidized housing, severely disabled. It's personal to me that we do good work. But again, let's go. This guy can't repeat himself. Risk, no guarantees. We try and mitigate the risk as much as we can. We understand this is for you guys, but based on Lenny's leadership, it makes sense for you guys to take this on. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Joe. Any questions for Joe? Okay, let's go next.
Want to talk about feasibility real quick?
Um,
Or would you rather go ahead? Go ahead. So it's actually a good transition. Joe talked about risk and mitigating risk, talked about how we've been involved. And we're sort of, the dog on a leash, right, getting ready to go. And we've been very careful in counseling Lenny about how fast we need to proceed, or how slow we need to proceed. And, Lenny being very motivated and we're excited about the project. We also don't want to spend your money now, and giving you guys the bills now for a project that may or may not be feasible down the road. Once the market study vets our concept, then we know, hey, we've got very good odds of this is going to go forward. We'll be able to take the development further. So to this point, Lenny asked that we talk about our involvement over the last year. It's been really on an as needed basis, whether we're looking at site analysis for this site, whether we're looking at whether it's the health center site, whether we're looking at a small senior center, or now the project's grow into a community center based on stakeholder requests and involvement, to now it's a larger community center, right? Incorporating aspects of senior center, wellness, office spaces for local development groups, to now we have a multifamily affordable housing program that's part of it, which is sort of evolved to the forefront of the project, knowing that there is a major need for housing. And we believe that that portion of the project will help to ultimately fund and pull in funders and support for the community center in the future. So where we're kind of looking at the project currently, you have that site plan money?
Yep, I have your PowerPoint ready to go.
It's a two-phase project as of right now, potentially a three-phase project. We're really looking at the affordable housing as phase one, and really focusing on getting that going. As Joe said, we need to get that application in ASAP. So far, we've really done the bare minimum needed to generate interest, to hit the requirements for site plan approval here locally through the village, for our due diligence, for environmental, geotechnical survey, and for Joe in putting together his market study. Ultimately, these drawings would go in with the MISHDA package, so they can actually see what we're proposing in terms of an overall campus and housing development. So as we've talked about, we have a phase one environmental being performed currently, which is looking at a number of environmental initial due diligence issues, including wetlands. We are going to be looking to have a topographical survey of this site done, so we can see what the grading, what the slopes are, what issues we may have, as well as a subsurface survey, which is called a geotechnical report, where we'll have a drill rig go around the site in various areas to take soil samples down to 15, 20 feet to ensure and vet that it's actually a buildable site. Yes, Dollar General had some soil borings done, but this is a large site. It's a 13, almost 14-acre site, and just because they had suitable soils doesn't necessarily mean we are. We're assuming we are based on historic issues and precedents, but this will further vet that. So again, it's another safeguard. The environmental study is a safeguard. The topographical survey is a safeguard. So we've been taking this slowly, step by step. We've been talking with village stakeholders. We've talked with the planning commission. We've talked with the fire chief about fire safety, fire access, being it's a rural community. We don't have access to municipal water. So we are going to have wells on site that are providing water for storage tanks for fire suppression systems. So we've looked at that. The buildings will be very safe. Both the two housing buildings that you see and then the larger community center, all three will have their own well system. All three will have their own storage tank system. All three will have full fire suppression and fire alarm throughout the building. Both the previous fire chief, Mr. Serafin, and the current fire chief, Mr. Portis, are on board with the project. They've said that they have no issues bringing in surrounding departments to help connect to the building, provide pumper trucks. And I know the concerns come up a few times with multi-story buildings. Neither one of them had any issues given the buildings are fire suppressed, even though the village of Lincoln itself doesn't have a ladder truck. They said by the time your fire suppression systems kick in and they're working, we'll already have activated the ladder trucks and they'll be here in short order. So we're very confident with the fire safety, the life safety, site circulation we've talked about with the fire chief, openness, proximity of building to building, individual building fire safety and life safety. We're very confident about the current proposed design. To give you a little rundown to where you're looking at, over on the right edge of the screen there, the right edge of the site, that's Barlow Road running north-south. The large gray square in the upper right is the existing Dollar General site. Up at the, or just below the Dollar General site, coming off of Barlow, would be the primary entrance for the multifamily housing, which then goes back to the west and feeds to a major north-south or north-west southeast feeder road, which exits out to the south and enters off to the south, which becomes the primary entrance and exit for the future community center. What that access road also does, it gives you a loop around the site for fire access, waste management, rescue vehicles, residents of the multifamily housing, visitors of the community center. So nobody's going to be dead-ended, nobody's going to be landlocked. You're going to be able to get in and out and not have to jockey around and get around. In the middle of the two multifamily housings, there's a brighter green area. We're looking at that being common space with playground and all-inclusive playground and a tot lot for the residents and their kids that live there. It's enough space that you could have community gardens there, you could have raised beds there. In general, it's an open green space campus that we'll look to develop as part of the overall program. To the southwest of the main drive there, it's running up at an angle there, the darker green area, that's what we're looking at as a central combined septic field. That would have, each building would have its own tank, and then each building's tank would then feed to a central advanced treatment septic field, which then would be a larger green space as well. While you couldn't build anything permanent on this space, I think there's options again for garden space, outdoor activity space, picnic space, playground space. You could have fitness paths running through that area, mulch paths, things of that nature. A lot of development for outdoor amenity spaces there. Further southwest of that, right now, it looks like it's all trees. We've actually just found out as recently as yesterday from our environmental consultant that we thought there might have been around 3 acres of wetlands. I think it's half acre,
at most.
which gives you another 2.5 acres of developable open space, which is great. Unfortunately, I don't think you'll be able to get any structures, large structures back there because of the power lines running adjacent to the road there. But we should be able to get some drives and access pathways in there where you could further develop some of your outdoor amenity spaces, whether it's sport courts, you could have some garden spaces again, you could have some fitness areas, you could have some nature trails running through the woods. You could, part of reaching out to ACCOA schools as a partner, some of the county FFA organizations, they could become part of this. There's a lot of opportunity there now, knowing we have available land. Continuing on up to the northwest around the loop road there, come into a front parking area with a drop off for the community center. Right now, that's about 2 stories, 50 to 80,000 square feet with current program. I wouldn't think it would exceed that. If anything, we're going to be able to scale it back a little bit by further looking at this program once we get into it further. We're sitting tight on that currently, concentrating on phase 1 of the housing. Once that really kicks off and that's got a positive firm direction, we'll jump back into the community center. That's a few years down the road, most likely. Full access around the building. There's a main entry at the front, which would be for most of the community center, senior center functions. In the back, we're looking at doing a dedicated wellness center entry, which would lead to gym spaces, locker spaces, workout spaces, and that sort of thing. Each building's got their own trash and waste. Like I said, the family housing is multi-story. It's 3 stories, 22 units each building with about 1,000 square foot of community space attached to the north building. That would be community space for phase 1. Once phase 2 is built, you would have additional community space in there that can be used by new residents as well. Currently, right now, we are hitting all of our zoning marks. The only thing that we're probably going to be deficient on a little bit is parking. But I think that's a discussion really to have with the city to say, I don't think parking is going to be a big issue, even though your zoning ordinance says it needs to be this based on building size. Due to the size of the county, I don't think it's going to be an issue. We've already had preliminary discussions with the village and the zoning administrator. They love the project. They've had no negative complaints about it, no negative issues. Very excited about it. And they basically said, anything you guys need, let us know. We'll get special meetings planned. We'll get this through to the next step as you need it. And we're looking forward to being your partner. Yes, sir.
On the 3-floor housing.
Yep.
How many elevators are there?
Good question. So actually, jump slides. So right now, what you're looking at here at the bottom is the first floor plan, where you see the vertical beige lines, if you will. Those are individual stairs that will serve 6 units. So these are called walk-up apartments. Every one of them's got direct access to each individual stair. They'll be able to come in and out of the building directly. No elevators. It's not required in these types of buildings. So all the units on the first floor would end up being accessible. 2 stories up above would not be accessible. They'd all have their own individual stairs with 2 exits for fire safety. Yellow, or the darker yellow-orange units on the bottom are 3-bed units. The green units are 1-bedroom units. The blue are 2-bedroom units. So you can kind of see how that mix is varied on each floor. The light purple to the left on the first floor is the community space that I mentioned. So jump into the elevation line.
This one.
Yeah, you can go to that one. That's the unit floor plan. So on the right, 1 bedroom, middle 2 bedroom, left 3 bedroom. You can see the typical unit layouts we're doing. We're ranging from about 700 square feet for the 1 bedroom to about 1,400 square feet for the 3 bedroom, I believe.
Yeah, 1,423.
Yep, 1423. And those are gross areas, so you're a little bit less than that with your actual livable space. But these units meet Michigan design standards in preparation for getting into a 4% tax credit, which requires us to comply with Michigan design requirements, which again is safe, habitable, nice units, but they're efficient units. They're not luxury units. They have their own standards for materials and building construction. So whoever we partner with from a general contractor standpoint, you'll want them to have experience in that as well, so that they're building according to those standards. I have a lot of experience with those standards. So these are already designed to meet those standards. Our specs will be designed to meet those standards. And once it comes to construction administration, we'll be working with the general contractor through construction, as well as the MISTA inspectors and field staff to ensure you have a quality building. Last slide, please. Yep, so this is our initial concept of what the front of these 2 buildings would look like. They sort of have a agricultural, rural farmhouse look to them. You know, they're not a typical vinyl sided monster that you might think a affordable housing, low-income housing project might be. And believe it or not, that's very affordable. Just by the construction. Thank you.
Nice job.
Not final by any means, but that's our initial first blush at it. That's kind of what we can use from here on out. You guys can use it as marketing material. Yes, 22 minutes.
I was wondering if anybody's eating lunch today. Two? 3? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
So that's it on the design. Anything else I need to touch on? Mike?
I do not believe so.
Fire safety we
We
discussed.
talked about fire safety, and the trucks themselves will be able to plug into that
Correct.
system.
Yep.
So there won't be any need for them to go out to the lake and pump in water or anything like that.
So as far as the, oh, go ahead, Bill.
Are you incorporating any electronic or like electric car charging type atmosphere?
Honestly, we haven't talked about it yet. That's something we could talk about from the design phase if there's a need for that in the community. You see that coming down.
Because we, in Harrisville, they've got 2 station 4 hookups already installed, and there will be ribbon cutting soon, so
Okay.
they're already looking.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something we can look into. I do know there's some grants through the utility companies available for doing that. So that's definitely
Not a bad
something.
idea.
But we're definitely looking at making the projects as green as possible, like so that we're cutting down on costs on the grid by having, solar panels, so that there is not as much as heating costs, looking at how we have airflow. So in case if there is, God forbid, another pandemic, we would have an HVAC system that would be running through the facility that would be above or at the standard or above standard, so that we wouldn't have to close that. So we could stay.
Yeah, as part of doing the project through MISTA will have their own set of what they call green requirements or sustainable requirements. So while the project won't go after, if you're familiar with the term LEED or Energy Star, right? We won't have to be certified per se, but there will be a certain level of sustainability that we'll have to meet through MISTA, which goes to air quality, renewable materials, energy efficiency, water efficiency. Those are some of the big areas that they hit on. Use of the site, right? They don't want to just see a large asphalt area. They want to see landscaping incorporated, low impact materials, that sort of thing. So,
Is this design So that in the future, if we decide to put up some garages, is there gonna be room? Is
Not currently. We've not looked at doing garages. I know we've talked about doing carports, potentially.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, it easily could be carports over the parking areas with a project like this.
And that would take care of the electric car thing too. wouldn't it?
Yeah, you could mount it within there.
Regarding the elevator, Lenny and I talked about this a little bit, but have we checked with, for instance, emergency services to make sure that if somebody on the 3rd floor falls and breaks their back, breaks their leg, whatever, can't walk,
Right.
as far as getting them down in a gurney and all of that without the use of an elevator?
No, we haven't. We've not brought that up. I know what we talked about with the fire chief was that we weren't anticipating any elevators at this time based on the design of the type of units that these are, and he did not raise any concerns specifically.
I just want to make sure that we're looking at, and the other thing is somebody that starts out on the 3rd floor who maybe is elderly or is not elderly and suddenly becomes immobile, how are they going to get up and down to their apartment? Are we going to have to move them down? You know, what if there's no accessible stuff available on the 1st floor?
Correct.
I just want to kind of think through those things too, so that you don't have a situation where a person that's living beautifully on the 3rd floor suddenly now has to move because they no longer are able to access their stairs.
Sure.
A quite possible workaround could be a freight elevator, which would not be a common use elevator.
Right.
So then that can be something that is only specific for those particular uses. So that might be something that we can talk about.
We'd have to look at it because the way the units are currently designed as walk-up units, you don't have a common corridor. Right? So you don't have this large massive building where you have one elevator that's accessible to everybody. You end up now with essentially 4 stairways. So you do an elevator for each stairway, or you say, okay, well, one bank of 6 units is going to have access to it. So if that truly is a concern, we probably have to look at just a different design layout for the buildings. We initially were looking at sort of a monolithic building or a congregate living type of building where you had a central lobby. The building gets very large, it gets very spread out, it gets almost too commercialized, right? It was really like a large apartment building versus what we were trying for was more like a smaller rural living type unit.
And I don't have a problem with no elevators as long as our EMTs say, we have no problem.
If he comes
getting
back and
people-
says, no, absolutely not, no, you need an elevator, well, then that's going to help dictate the design.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anything else for? All right.
One
Well,
question. What's the price increase sticking out there instead of there?
Probably at least $100,000.
Oversimplified, I'm sorry,
Probably at least $100,000.
for the whole project.
Yeah, installed for a larger passenger, like 3,500-pound passenger, smaller freight elevator, it's about $100,000.
That's
So that's
per
not-
elevator.
that'd
Per
be
elevator.
Per elevator.
and then you've got increased, of course, electricity costs,
Oh,
maintenance
yeah, I
costs,
understand.
all that too. So all of that has to be kind of
Right.
Consider, yeah.
considered.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, who's next on the?
Well, thank you for inviting me here, and I'm glad that I heard these presentations because I think it really synchronizes very well with the feasibility study and questions that we have on the surveys that are out in the community. I think Len's going to have me back in the future for maybe more detailed discussion of this. So I'm just going to get some of the highlights. I was just looking at the survey that's on. Actually, we're using the University of Michigan's Qualtrics because I'm a retiree. I have access to this, so I can go online and watch everything. We just sent a survey out to the leadership. There's a leadership directory that NEMCOG, Northeast Michigan Council of Governments, put out of all the townships, all the elected appointed officials, about 225 people in the database, and that survey is going out either today or tomorrow. So that'll be the first one, and then we'll be going out to the general population fairly soon after that, in another weeks. The different topics that we're asking on the surveys coincide very much with some of the things that you're talking about, and the overall topics are continuing and supplemental education and training, transportation, wellness, health and nutrition, technology resources, community, the sense of the community and what's important, and also some opportunities for open comments. And is there anything else that we missed on these surveys? We're covering a kind of a spectrum of different things such as recreation, such as let's say computer coding, education and training classes that maybe the high school isn't offering, but we would have a technology or computer center in the community center. We're also going to have specific surveys for agricultural production, a farmer's market, entrepreneurship, a business incubator, business accelerator, for students and youth. There are three segments of the population. There's the youth, there's the adult, and there's seniors. So we're making sure that we cover the demographics of the community. And what we're really trying to do is establish what are the needs. What do people in the community see as the most critical needs in the community to be able to improve the quality of life, the economy, health, opportunity, and to keep young people and to mitigate population drain. We think that by the time we've answered these questions, it's going to inform some of the things that you're doing, because this is the voice of the community. And it's also going to be able to, I think, once these surveys are out into the community, it's going to begin to get the community behind this kind of a project, because they're going to be telling you what they feel they need as members of the community. And we're really excited about this. I have a great team. I have about 5 people besides myself, a graduate student from the School of Public Policy at the University of Michigan, a person that I worked with, Dr. Tom Perorazio, who's working on the analysis part of it, one of the faculty members at the College of Public Policy, who's a survey expert. So I'm kind of bringing in some people like Lenny does, surrounding myself with some of the best people in the business. So we make sure that we're doing this thing right and that it has validity. So I'll be back talking with you in the future. And one thing I will say now is we're not waiting until the end, until we have all the data and everything else. As we get our responses in, we can start pushing out some of the results that we're getting and tell you 20% of the population is telling us this, 80% is telling us that. So we're going to keep it in mind. Okay.
Thank you.
How are those surveys going out?
They're going out mostly to email addresses, but there are some cases where we're going to be sending them out through US mail, and we may make. We're talking with some of the congregations. Lenny gave me the ministers and the reverends, and they may be handing them out. We may have some at the senior center here. We want to make sure that anybody who wants to have a survey has access to it.
Yeah, I just mentioned with Lenny too, sending them out with Meals on Wheels. That way we reach a large part of our population.
Timeline? When do we get it?
Well, we should be getting probably within a month, we will have enough surveys in to be able to report the initial results of what we're seeing. We want to have all this information. Yeah.
I mean, part of the reason why we've kind of backed off a little bit and we're concentrating on the housing portion is we know there's a need for the housing.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? We know that that's got to go. The real question is the number of units, the market rate, who's going to be in there. The community center is sort of not an unknown, but there's aspects of it that we don't know how much, how important aspects.
Yes, I understand.
And so that we've kind of geared back on that, and we're looking forward to seeing the results.
We have October 1st as kind of as a goal anyway, because that's the start of the new federal fiscal year, and if we want to get applications from federal agencies for grants, we want to have that date available.
Hopefully October 1st. Well, and that's the thing too. We're kind of like a little Orphan Oliver. We're asking Mr. Lisa, can I have some more? And then while we're at it, can I also have something to drink as well from USDA? So, they're right behind each other and they're playing off of each other. So, so that's why we're having these dominoes lined up that hopefully will fall, So, like I said, I'm not the expert, but I do believe in putting people in the room that are smarter than I am and saying, go get it.
Any other questions for Larry? All right, thank you, gentlemen, for your work up until now and moving forward. Appreciate that. At this point, we did have a committee meeting this week that I would like the Building and Grounds Committee did meet to talk about a couple of issues. And Will, if you would report out what.
The first thing we should talk about is making the survey, choosing the surveyors for this last.
Yes, yeah, so we discussed the surveyors to do the remaining, I think it was the technical survey and the topographical or what?
Well, there are two surveys. You have Meridian survey and print and move off that needs to be authorized and approved by the board.
Yes.
Right, and that is also in your book.
Yep. And the committee did make the recommendation to approve those two organizations to do the remaining two surveys that are required to be done in order to move forward with the project. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion from the board to approve or to accept the recommendation of the Building and Grounds Committee to approve Brennan
Print and move off.
and Newhoff and Meridian survey for the two remaining surveys. Kim made the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded, Stan? Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor, aye. All opposed, no. Motion.
You're gonna have to do a roll call because.
Oh, because money. Yep, you're right. I'm sorry. Roll call vote, please. Thank you. Which is the
Dan
possibility.
O'Connor,
Yes.
Dolores Schlicker. Yes. Mike Maturin,
Yes.
I vote yes. Roland Lynch,
Yes.
Stan Weiner,
Yes.
is Stephanie with us?
No.
No, I'm sorry. Kim? Yes. And Will,
Yes. So it's unanimous.
unanimous.
Motion
ayes.
carries. Okay, Will.
Yeah, exciting.
Her first real vote.
That's just my opinion.
Well,
Hey, the next thing that we talked about in the meeting is that Lenny would like to go ahead, be authorized to go ahead with the land purchase as quickly as possible after these surveys are in.
Yeah, so our meetings are open to the public and we have a purchase agreement and things happen. People can listen and see and say, oh, that's what you're doing. And the purchase price could change. It had changed once and I would like for it not to change again. And based off of historic data and these experts, we do not believe that, they surveyed 3.65 acres, that you're going to get a dramatic difference between, a few hundred feet, a few thousand feet within reason. And based off of favorable surveys that we received thus far, the biggest one that we had was the environmental, and that's already pretty much come back. They've just completed their work and they hadn't had any red flags. And that was basically the big portion of it. The topographical, it just talks about the slope, and the other one is just where the land survey markers are. So we pretty much got 80% that we can pretty much build. The other ones are just kind of the window dressing. So with that said, I would like to go ahead and be authorized by the board to send a check so we can request a deed and we can have that site control that Joe talked about earlier, and that this is now what we now know.
Yeah, the topographic, the worst thing that happens is that the slope is bad and we'll have to bring in a grader or
Right.
to bring in.
Yeah.
Or blast a rock out of the way.
further on.
There you go.
So-
So the recommendation I
And the,
received,
and the detail about exactly where the edge of the property is not a serious concern.
No.
It's been surveyed already. Yep. Should be fine. So we're very low risk.
Yep.
Situation here. So the committee's recommendation is to let Lenny proceed with the purchase even before these last two surveys come back, just to make sure that we don't suffer price inflation.
Right.
So it's not just
Yes.
hanging out there.
yeah, absolutely. So I've received the board or the committee recommendation to allow, to authorize Lenny to go ahead and make the purchase now. Any,
How much was that for?
38,000, put a total of 40,000. You put a
$40,000.
$2,000 deposit to hold it, and you would just be authorizing the remaining 38,000 for the remaining.
So 40,000 for how many acres?
13.69 acres.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we authorize Lenny to purchase a property
any,
immediately.
been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? We do need a roll call vote.
Dan O'Connor,
Yes.
Dolores Slicker,
Yes.
Mike Maturin,
Yes.
myself, yes. Roland Lynch.
Yep.
Stan Weiner,
Yes.
Will St. John,
Yes.
Kim Fleming.
Yes.
We have unanimous vote.
Unanimous.
Motion
Roll call.
carries by the property. And I think, was there one or two more?
We have one more.
One more.
The selection of a manager,
Construction man.
construction manager. This was a little more complicated. We do need a construction manager for the housing portion of this project, the part we're talking about currently. There'll be a second selection for the community part of it. So that's not relevant right now. So we're just talking about the building of the apartments. The manager that we'll have here is the guy who will be talking to Mishna, our architects, our other the rest of the team for this part of the project. They'll be responsible for completing construction plan at a price that the team agrees is
For the
the
application.
For the application.
yeah, for the application. They will then be first in line to actually do the construction, of course, because they'll be the ones familiar and so forth. So they should be the ones that do it. So Lenny and Mike went out and researched the companies, construction companies that Mishta approves for this kind of work. That list is short. They identified 4 companies that are currently active. I'm sorry, 5 companies that are currently active. Sent notes to each of them asking for a bid, and also opened the door for anyone else who could qualify. They got one of the 5 people that has the relevant sort of building experience. Bid, the other 4 for whatever reasons declined. We also got one open bid.
Yeah, we're expecting another one here shortly. From O'Brien.
Oh, we got,
No, we have.
we got it. Yeah.
We have one.
Okay, understood. Sorry.
Yep.
Okay, Clark, one of the 2, and the open bidder, sent us quite a lot, which you've had an opportunity to see. They are certainly a large operation. They have a lot of experience working with Michigan and so forth.
for a giant company, this would be a very small budget for them. O'Brien Construction, it's a somewhat smaller company, but they're, you know, they're not Fred's Carpentry. They've been in business since 1962. The current owner is the son of the founder. They started in the Pontiac Waterford area. They have done at least 30 these public, I'm sorry, not public, low income housing projects. They have 4 the current that they told us about anyway that they currently are working on. The difference, either one of these companies could probably do this job. The relevant difference, I think, for us right now is that Clark has not done very many housing projects. They've done hospitals, they've done university buildings, they've done community centers, they've done stuff like that. All sorts of projects in the public sector, but not housing. There may be 1 or 2 housing projects, but it's not. That's not the first thing they want to do. O'Brien, go to their website and you look under services, what we do, the first thing up there is housing, multifamily housing. That's the first thing on their list. So given their long experience, they've done this kind of thing since 1962, I think, or at least in the 60s, which is 50 years ago. They probably have figured this out by now. They're well known within the community of builders. You guys know them and would be happy to work with them. Yes. It's a recommendation of the committee that because of their specific experience in housing, that we want them as the general contractor. We'll revisit this issue when it comes time for the community building, where it may be, for instance, for Clark or somebody else to be the general contractor. But our recommendation for this part of the project is to go with the O'Brien group.
Right. Yeah, thank you, Will. And understand that this is what we're doing now is approving them to come in as our construction manager, which allows them then to look at the blueprints from SIDOC and price out the project down to the last screw and give us a budget, and then we can go from there. So this, and they are doing this as a no charge thing. So we don't need to take a roll call, but I would just ask for a motion then to approve the recommendation of the Building and Grounds Committee to bring on O'Brien Construction as our construction manager for phase 1.
I'm gonna go through the.
Rollins moved. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Been seconded by Stan. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries.
That's it for us.
That's for that committee, and no other committees met. Since I was not informed of any committee meetings. Okay, perfect. So at this point, I would accept a motion to go to close the open meeting, go into closed session for a matter, and then we will reopen the meeting at the end of the discussion of that matter. So I would accept the motion to go into closed session. So, Will? Oh, okay. So can you read that motion that's on the agenda?
I don't have.
I got it. In accordance with the Open Meetings Act, LLC 15.26A, I motion for closed door session to consult with ACCOA's attorney regarding trial or settlement strategy in connection with specific pending litigation. Bill versus ACCOA. And the claim number. Doing so in an open meeting would have a detrimental financial effect on the litigation or settlement position of the public body. So you move. Will.
So Will moves.
Will moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Dolores. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. This meeting is now in closed session. We will reopen at the end of closed session. All right, I will entertain a motion to go back into open session.
I'll make a motion.
Dan moved and seconded by Roland. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, we are now back in open session.
So I'll make a motion to accept our attorney's legal advice from the discussion during closed session.
I'll
It's
second it.
been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote, Madam Secretary.
Okay. Dan,
Yes.
Dolores,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
okay, myself, yes, Roland.
Yeah.
Stan,
Yes.
Will,
Yes.
and Kim, yes.
We have a unanimous decision. Motion is carried. Thank you. And thank you for that catch, Dan. All right, so I'd like to welcome Quentin Meeks from the Lappin Agency to our meeting. Go ahead with your.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate it. I represent Lappin Agency. I don't know if any of you know Tom or Steve Lappin. So they're obviously at some point trying to ride off into the sunset. I moved up here about a year and a half
Because they're
ago.
old.
Yeah, right. No, I moved up here a year and a half ago with my wife to help perpetuate Lappin Agency's business alongside of the other 20 or so staff members that are still there. So I've been immersed in business much like this for the past year and a half, and we have Kobe to thank for a pretty strange induction into the Alpena and Alcona area. But I know you've covered a lot today, so I'll keep this very brief. Lenny has mentioned it. Coverages don't change. Everything's the same as it was last year. We actually will be moving you to a new workers' compensation carrier, primarily because we were able to get a little bit of reduction. Had we just renewed simply as is, this would have been another couple thousand more expensive. I was able to do something on the comp by moving it. So that's my recommendation. Ultimately, we save about 2,000 on that end. So it just, anywhere we could find it, I wanted to try to keep costs down. As we discussed, the loss ratio is high. It's going to have some runoff and it's going to impact you for a couple of years. It's a justified increase. There, we know why it's increased. I think HCC has been a great partner, and they're specifically a good partner on an account like this that has multiple moving parts. So, I mentioned words like shop, or if we wanted to shop. Certainly with the service they've given over the past year and how we've seen this policy work in a real life claim scenario, whether or not the terms we enjoy. But they've done a great job at doing the best they can to try to navigate through this. And so this is certainly something that we recommend for this year and in years to come, as long as we can continue to mitigate risk. So, what I'm searching for today is, if you have questions, I'd love to answer them. But otherwise, we just want to make sure that the board is comfortable moving forward. It's a 50% increase. So all in, the premium this year is going to be $31,918. Last year, it was $21,186. So rounding to a 50% increase. So looking for your approval, but we're going to have to answer questions or concerns.
Any questions for Quentin? All right, I would accept a motion to accept the insurance proposal as detailed by Quentin. Will moved.
I'll second.
Dolores second. So it's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, we do need a roll call vote, Madam Secretary.
Okay, Dan O'Connor.
Yes.
Dolores Schlicker.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Roland. Stan Weiner.
Yes.
Will St. John
Yes.
and Kim. Yes,
I'll vote yes too.
and you too. I forgot you. Went past you. My
Motion-
eyes hopped to my hand. Sorry.
It's unanimous.
Unanimous.
Motion carries. Thank you, Gwen.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
The only other old business we have is I had made committee appointments last month. And I can't blame the cold snap for freezing my brain cells for last month, so I'm gonna blame it on the heat we had. On the finance committee, I appointed 3 people who have no power to sign checks at this agency. So instead of Dan, Stephanie, and Will, the finance committee will now be Dolores, Rolland, and Will. So that, because Dolores and Rolland have been signing checks, they're on the bank account, that just makes things smoother. And then with Kathleen's departure from the board, we have the policies and procedures committee that she sat on, which would be the bylaws and that sort of thing. Will, I would like to ask you if you would be willing to sit on that committee as well. And then the other committee that Kathleen was on, I was going to appoint Kim to, but I already appointed Kim to that one. And that's the fundraising committee. So I'm going to leave that position open right now. So we'll have just 2 people on that fundraising committee currently. And then I'll kind of flesh out, you know, if somebody really wants that. Yeah.
You like have a list?
Of fundraisers?
I mean,
Oh,
no, I mean, how
Of
do we
committee?
how do we know about these meetings or the committee? I mean, I don't know anything about it.
yeah, I'm going to write up a new list with these changes, and I'll email that out to everybody, and I'll print off one for you
Okay.
and Roland and Stan. All right, I'll just
You're
print them
already
all
ahead of
off.
the game because you answer emails.
Yes.
So,
Oh,
so you are, and you know how to click into Zoom. So.
Yeah, so I will, I'll redo the list once I get it solidified. I'm gonna leave fundraising with just 2 committee members right now, which is okay. You can still function as a committee. So that would be Dolores and Kim. If anyone else wants to serve on that committee, just let me know and I'll be happy to do that. I serve as ex officio on all committees and on voting members. So if you do have a committee meeting, please let me know so that if I'm able, I'll attend the meeting. Let me go over the names again just one time, and then I'll reprint it, because Personnel Committee is Dolores, Stan, and Kim. Finance Committee will now be Dolores, Rolland, and Will. Policies and Procedures will be Will, Pam, and Stan. Nominations Committee, Stan, Rolland, and Stephanie. Fundraising will right now remain just Dolores and Kim. Building and Grounds Committee, which is the one that met yesterday, is Will, Stan, and Rolland. And then the Program and Planning Committee, Dolores, Pam, and Kim. We had talked in the past about consolidating these committees, some, instead of having 18 different committees, maybe consolidating, but when I did these appointments, I did it based on the bylaws that we're currently sitting under. So we'll entertain that, you know, maybe at the next meeting about consolidating these committees and kind of redoing things so that we don't have so much going on at one time. But so those are the committees as they stand. If you have a meeting, email me, call me, send up smoke signals, whatever you have to do to get a hold of me so that I can attend or at least be aware of it. Any questions on those?
Of course.
Yeah.
This Will name on all the banks that we deal with.
Will's name is not on the bank accounts. I don't know that it necessarily has to be on the
Yes.
finance committee.
Not to be on the
He
committee.
does have to sign checks, which
Yes,
is why I wanted to make sure I put you 2 back on the committee, because you're already on the bank accounts. It's easier.
He will have to go to the credit union and have a copy of our board minutes to get.
Yeah, if
he wants to sign.
yeah, if you want to have signatory power, then
I'm happy to, you know, just to cover the bases.
Yep.
When,
yeah, if somebody's sick or,
when someone's ill and someone's out of town.
yep.
So I think
Yeah.
we should, maybe I'll make a motion to add Will to our
So that's a good thing.
signature list, so we can capture that in the minutes.
Yep. All right. So Dan O'Connor has moved to add Will to the signature list on the bank account. So we have Rollins seconded. Any, Stan, everybody, we got second, thirds, fourths. It's like Thanksgiving dinner. Any questions, any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. And Madam Secretary, once you get the minutes typed up, we'll get a copy so that we can go to the bank.
Sounds good.
Okay, perfect.
Could policies and procedures committee meet and do our new bylaws? Go
We-
over our bylaws
we-
and do
yes.
whatever.
Make any
to 'em?
changes.
Yeah, and changes do need to be made.
Proposed changes, yeah.
I am going to reach out to Kathleen because Kathleen did a tremendous amount of work on those, on kind of redoing the bylaws. And I'm going to ask if she would be willing to send us the work that she did so that we have
So we don't
something to
have
go
to
by.
reproduce
So yeah,
it.
so we don't have to reinvent the
But you
wheel.
have a copy of it, don't you? You
Not
and
her
Stan,
work.
she gave you a copy of it
No,
that day? I
No,
think she did.
I don't have a copy of it.
no, she hadn't, I don't think. Yeah, Stan, if you would look, but I'm gonna reach out to her. If she's
I know
willing
I
to
did.
send that to us, then by all means, that would make the committee's
Yeah.
job a lot easier. So I'll do that. I'll send her an email this afternoon when I get home. But yes, we need to meet, we need to get new bylaws hammered out and all of that, so. Okay, do we have any new business?
Did the Euchre Club count their request?
Oh,
Their
yeah.
requests are already being fulfilled right now
I saw that.
Yeah.
but I just,
because they were supposed to be up here.
Yeah. Do we have a problem with, I mean, I don't have a problem. with it,
no,
but-
I didn't know if it
I
had to
I
be
have to get
addressed.
signage up, the new, I'm waiting for the governor's meeting. It doesn't change anything for us. It just makes it more difficult. So the new signs will read, mask are required for non-vaccinated individuals, and then I won't say anything because people will walk in here
Without masks.
unvaccinated without
And you
masks,
don't have to.
and we can't do anything
Well, it's
about
the
it.
honor system,
Yeah.
so to speak.
I think most of our
Last
seniors are
time, last time
probably,
I did that, I was in kindergarten, and we saw how that.
Everybody, yeah.
So.
all right, so I'd entertain just to make it official, a motion to allow the senior Euchre club to meet downstairs instead of upstairs.
I'll make that motion.
Yeah, second.
Been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, aye. All opposed, nay. Motion's carried. You can give the good news to your sister-in-law.
Okay, she'll like that.
All right, any other new business? Do we have any public comment to end the meeting? Do we have any board member comments? Hearing and seeing none, I would call for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I make that motion.
Will got really excited, but Rollin beat him. So you want to second it, Will?
Sure.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay? This meeting is adjourned at 12:45 PM. Went a little longer, but that was by necessity.
Mine's up there.